Hello, everybody. Well, I wanted to do a few things in this video. One of the things, I didn't want to just do a straight Q&A right now, but I'll probably end up doing a bunch of that. I wanted to do one of those other How to Speak Scientologese videos that were a lot of fun. I think people thought that was pretty funny. Hello, Carl Malone. And for the How to Speak Scientologese stuff, hello in Illinois. Hi, Melissa. I've been keeping notes of the words or the phrases that people message in or comment on, asking for better definitions for how to use them properly. And hello, everybody coming on in. And the list that I have here that I haven't already addressed is not very long and only mildly interesting. So I'll probably do a combination, How to Speak Scientologese, address some of the Q&A questions I've been receiving, and maybe try to take some questions here from the live stream. Hello, notice me, hello, Vlog Talk, hello in Toronto, hello in Barcelona, hello in Finland, hello in Massachusetts. So I'll tell you what, there's a few questions that came in that I want to address before tackling some of the How to Speak Scientologese, and then we'll take it from there. Actually, let me pull up this stream and send out a little tweet. Hello in South Carolina. All right, it's not going to let me do it. If anybody is watching this and wants to tweet the link to the stream, I will mention me in the tweet and I'll go and retweet it. It's going to be too much trouble for me to go find this thing right now. Hello in Georgia, hello in Germany, hello in California. Did you comb your beard? Actually, before last week, the beard was getting pretty out of control. And 2 weekends ago or one weekend ago, it's all blurring together at this point. I went to LA for the Emmy ceremony for Scientology in the Aftermath. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to the ceremony looking like a caveman. So I went to a local LA barber and they did a nice little trim, but it's been a couple weeks now. So if it looks like the beard is groomed, it's because it was. And I'm kind of liking it. It extends the length of my face, which I didn't think I had a problem with, but it's looking pretty good. All right, but what I do want to do is pull up the live chat so that at some point I can address questions coming in. And it's just not going to let me figure out how to do it. Hello in Belfast. Okay, so let's address some of the questions here. I'll try to bring them somewhat closer to the camera. All right, here's a few good ones. How can body thetans be a big Scientology secret if the word thetan is commonly known in Scientology? Everybody in Scientology has heard of OT, which means operating thetan. And everybody, even a new Scientologist, knows that it stands for operating thetan. So if the word thetans... Is there something wrong with my connection? We should be good. All right, so if the story about... So if the word thetan is not a secret, but the story about body thetans is a big secret, what are the new Scientologists being told about what operating thetan means? Okay, good question. Thetan is obviously not a secret. Everybody in Scientology knows what the word thetan is. Everybody in Scientology knows what OT or operating thetan is. But the word body thetan is not a word that exists in the Scientology language other than OT3 and above. And so body thetan is not related to the concept of operating thetan, other than the fact that on the OT levels, by the way, Scientologists don't call them the operating thetan levels. I know it seems like it would make sense that they would, but they don't. Nobody says operating thetan level 1, 2, or 3. It's always OT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on the OT levels, once you get on to OT3, you then learn about body thetans and this concept and this background story of what a body thetan is. And so it's not that the word thetan is secret. It's that the word body thetan, or they call them BT, is short for body thetan. A body thetan, a BT, or a BT cluster. And even then it gets abbreviated into BTs and clusters. But a cluster is a BT cluster. And here's why it's a secret. Here's how the concept of a body thetan is different than thetan or operating thetan. Thetan is just supposed to mean all of us, we're all spirits, we're all thetans. Operating thetan is supposed to represent the native state of how all thetans used to be in the early days of this universe. We were all godlike. We could all create and destroy planets by just thinking about them. The concept operating thetan means, it's supposed to mean, getting back to your native state and your native powers. The OT levels are called the OT levels because they're supposed to be the auditing levels that you progress through in order to go OT or full OT. See, LRH then created OT as a spectrum. Full OT would be you've regained back all your powers. You're basically Thor again. You're Thor, you're Zeus, you're whatever. OT is just used to refer to any Scientologist that has finished any of the OT levels. You would think that if you finish an OT level and you call yourself OT whatever, that you are to some respects OT, like these magical powers. And Scientologists do sort of attribute those personality traits to people who have done the OT levels. But the truth is, no one who's ever done the OT levels has ever reached any magical OT powers. So the word body thetan comes from the story, and this is where Xenu comes in. And this is why a lot of the public at large think Scientologists all believe in Xenu or worship Xenu or some shit like this. And that's really a misunderstanding. LRH explains, his explanation for what he says body thetans are is that 76 million or billion or trillion years ago, I just cannot remember right now, Xenu was basically the dictator of a large group of planets in some confederation or whatever. And he was having a population problem. So he called a whole bunch of his peoples in for tax audits. And it was a joke. It was a trick. They weren't really coming in for an audit. They were coming in to basically be imprisoned or enslaved. And I've never been totally clear whether in this story these body thetans were supposed to be inhabiting physical bodies or whether they were just, free thetans or whatever. And so whether they were in bodies or not, let's just say they were in bodies because it makes the story make more sense. He rounds them all up. He freezes them in some sort of glycol solution. He loads them up into DC-9 looking space planes. He flies them all to Earth, drops them into a bunch of volcanoes located near where the current Hawaiian Islands are, and then blows up hydrogen bombs on top of them. So why does this story have anything to do with Scientology? Because L. Ron Hubbard's theory is that this created a massive population of semi-dead, semi-conscious, degraded spiritual beings who have been severely handicapped as far as their OT powers go. And they're kind of crazy, and they're not even advanced enough to be able to have primary control of a body. And all they can do is blow around in the winds of this planet and stick to things and get stuck to things. So on all of the lower part of Scientology's bridge to total freedom, you are under the impression that you are addressing in auditing your own personal thoughts, feelings, desires, intentions, and whatever. And then on OT3, you come to find out, oh no, that wasn't what was wrong all along. What's wrong with you is you have thousands and thousands and thousands of these degraded, half-dead, crazy spirit entities, thetans, stuck to you. So much so that these thetans practically make up your body. And these thetans aren't strong enough or whatever to be able to have primary control of a body, but they will stick to you. And these entities is what cause your negative thoughts, negative emotions, doubts, insecurities, anxieties, and even your pains and physical ailments. So it's not that the word body thetan is some incredible secret in Scientology. It's the concept that it represents, which is this idea that what's wrong with you is not you or your reactive mind, but all of these entities that are stuck to you. And the idea that your OT levels and all the money and time you're going to spend on your OT levels is going to be spent basically auditing out or exorcising these spiritual entities. If lower level Scientologists knew that, it is my belief that for the most part they would be like, I don't think so. I'm gonna bail on this. Like, it's cool. I was having some fun. Maybe some things were making me feel good. But the real reason I was sticking around was this big old promise of these magical powers. And that doesn't sound like some shit that's going to give me some magical ass powers. Okay, so that is why the word body thetan is such a secret. Oh, well, you said, what are new Scientologists told about what the word operating thetan means? Exactly as I explained it. New Scientologists are told that operating thetan means this state in which you are able to freely go in and out of your body at will. You are not confined by your body or this physical universe. You can communicate telepathically with people and things. You can basically be a psychic badass spirit person. That is what they are told the word operating thetan means. Okay, next question. How does Scientology get away with promising superpowers to its members? I do not know of any other religion that makes such big promises if specific conditions are met. Scientology says if you do X, Y, and Z, you get superpowers, but that never happens. So why aren't members furious when they don't become supermen? I love this question. So again, this is something that non-Scientologists, people who've never been in Scientology, largely misunderstand because of how the media represents this. Yes, there is an auditing rundown called Superpower. Yes, the big giant Scientology building here in downtown Clearwater is colloquially called in Scientology the Superpower building. And I might eat my words here in a minute when I give it some more thought. Scientologists do not literally expect to get superpowers in the way that I think normal people would define superpowers. I know in their promotional materials and in the literature it might sound like I'm full of shit, but let me explain a little bit. So, most people would define superpowers as flying or superhuman strength or X-ray vision or whatever. That's never going to come into play, even in the minds of Scientologists. Here's what Scientologists mean by superpowers. Oh, first of all, let me just address the term superpower. Why is there an auditing action called superpower? Scientology generally markets and bills itself as something that is going to move you into a higher state of being where nothing can strike you down and you are not limited by the physical universe and you are essentially godlike. So those are superpowers, but you go, okay, well, give me an example. Well, Scientologists would consider being able to go in and out of your body at will a superpower. That's for damn sure. And there's no Scientologist in the world who's ever achieved that state. But Scientologists have a way of spinning things in their minds to convince themselves they have some sort of powers. That you can't get better examples than what was given 2 episodes ago in Scientology and the Aftermath. My God, what was the name of the episode? It wasn't, so today's Wednesday. I'm not talking about today's Wednesday, the 20th, September. I'm not talking about that one that aired on the 19th. I'm talking about the one that aired on the 12th. That actually laid out all of the steps of Scientology's Bridge to Total Freedom. In that episode, they gave many examples of stories Scientologists have put into writing for publication in Scientology magazines that were examples of these superpower type things. It's all subjective. So it's things like, I was about to get into a car accident, and with my mind and my intention, I moved the car in front of me ahead 4 inches, and the driver of that car was really startled. He had no idea what was going on. Well, this is just something somebody convinced themselves they did, and I believe 100% that they believe they did it. But it takes a certain amount of conditioning to convince yourself that you did that. Okay, so I think I digressed a moment. I was going to explain this concept of even using the word power or superpower in the name of an auditing rundown. There are 3 auditing rundowns in Scientology that have the word power in them. And it's just the name. It doesn't mean Scientologists literally expect to get powers or superpowers. It's just the name. Scientology always talks about their auditing rundowns being special, high-powered, super OT rundowns or whatever. So there's power auditing, there's power plus auditing, and there's superpower auditing. And it's really more of a marketing gimmick to call an auditing process that. It just means we're going to boost your horsepower as a Thetan. And you go, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, exactly, what the hell does that mean? It's just kind of self-help guru nonsense for being the best you can be. Okay, now, superpower itself, the superpower rundowns, it's like 12 or 13 separate auditing rundowns. This is a little bit of a different conversation. Because for a long time before these rundowns came out, they really were being marketed to Scientologists as something that would give you superpowers. But how do you define superpowers? It doesn't mean flying. It doesn't mean Superman powers. It means things like, well, again, on this episode I was talking about, this one guy says, I can detect the saline content of my cells. Okay, well, I don't think DC or Marvel would include that as a superpower. I'm not sure how being able to detect the saline content of your cells is a superpower, but it certainly is a delusional power. So that's the kind of thing, like the superpower rundown. Here's what also makes this conversation a little difficult. L. Ron Hubbard did not create this series of rundowns so that it could be marketed and sold to public Scientologists, telling them that they would get superpowers. That's actually something David Miscavige did with the superpower rundowns. L. Ron Hubbard had just put these little auditing actions together as a way to help people who had been incorrectly sent to the prison camp, to maybe not be quite as upset about having been sent to the prison camp. And so whatever you want to say about LRH's intention behind creating any auditing processes, I'm only saying that it was a huge marketing gimmick that Miscavige did to take this series of auditing actions that L. Ron Hubbard had created only to be delivered to certain Sea Org members, and to tie it up in a big giant bow and to sell it to Scientologists for $35,000 to $50,000 a pop, and telling Scientologists that L. Ron Hubbard said this series of rundowns, once they are delivered, is what will allow us to clear the planet. So, not making excuses for L. Ron Hubbard, just pointing out that it was purely a marketing gimmick behind this, by David Miscavige, behind this superpower auditing rundown and this whole big superpower building in downtown Clearwater. Okay, so let's see if there's something about this question I did not actually address. So I'm trying to think other than superpower. I'm trying to think if there's a very specific auditing rundown where people are told you will achieve this X ability that's kind of tantamount to a superpower ability. In Scientology, there's 3 series of rundowns called the L rundowns, L10, L11, and L12. People are told that if you do all of these rundowns, you will be fully, stably exterior at will. That means you can go in and out of your body whenever you want, without any weird after effects or trauma or amnesia or whatever, and you'll be able to control your body from a distance and all that kind of stuff. I have to tell you, I do not know how people pay 50 to 100 grand to do those auditing actions, and at the end are not incredibly disappointed. I just don't know. Because these L rundowns aren't standard rundowns that everybody going up the bridge would do. They're just special rundowns kind of off to the side that are considered super expensive and super exclusive and all that kind of stuff. I know how people justify saying they got through levels of the bridge that they were disappointed with. They do that because you know that if you don't say you achieve that level, you're not allowed to go on to the next level. And you're indoctrinated to believe that if you don't achieve the result of a particular level, there's something very wrong with you. So I understand why people lie about that shit. But if I was paying like an extra 100, 150 grand for these super special rundowns and I was told that's what they were going to give me, man, I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be pissed because we now know what's on those L rundowns, and it's a bunch of nonsense, in my humble personal opinion. And feel free to Google L10, L11, L12 Scientology rundowns, and you'll see what's on them. It's nothing special. It ain't gonna make you go fully stably exterior at will. Okay, let's move on. Where does Hubbard claim to acquire all of his knowledge from? Excellent question. The best answer I can give you is that he claims he was Buddha. He claims he was Buddha, and he is the reincarnation of Buddha, come back as the Maitreya to finish Buddha's work, and that Buddha only created a temporary state of clear, which was Bodhi. I could be getting all this wrong. I'm no religious historian as far as I only know how Hubbard explained it. And I might be pronouncing the words wrong. I only know how Hubbard pronounced them half the time. There's a book L. Ron Hubbard wrote called Hymn of Asia. You can probably find it online. And it's basically a book that he wrote. There was some big congregation of Buddhists or Hindus or whatever. I'm showing my ignorance already. And he wrote this book so that it could be published coincident to this conference or handed out at the conference or something like this. And it basically says, I am Maitreya. A lot of this is anecdotal, but I was told that in LRH's first draft of this book, it said, I am Maitreya, I am Maitreya. And the editors were like, ooh, we got to soft pedal this. And it says, am I Maitreya, am I Maitreya. All over and over and over through the book, it says, am I Maitreya, am I Maitreya, am I Maitreya. Like over, like to the point where you're like, okay, we got the point, dude. We got the point. You're Maitreya. Now, for the most part, L. Ron Hubbard says he never attempts to speculate. He never attempts to give reasons why he was the first one to be able to blaze the trail and forge the path up through the OT levels. He does claim that in his solo auditing research on the OT levels, he almost killed himself many times. He broke his back, he broke his arm, he this and he that. But he never goes and says, the reason I have been able to do all this is because X, Y, and Z. In fact, to the contrary, the most important policy letter in Scientology is called Keeping Scientology Working. And in that policy letter, he very specifically says, we will not speculate as to how I was able to rise above the reactive mind. You'd think that in the mind of a Scientologist, you would speculate as to why he was able to do all this and nobody else was. You think it'd be kind of an important part of the backstory. But the truth is, the only explanation he did ever provide is that he was Buddha, and whoever he was before Buddha, I'm sure, was someone amazing and important, and he was coming back to finish the work he had started as Buddha. And I can tell you this, as a young Scientologist growing up, the idea that L. Ron Hubbard had been Buddha is one of the main things I held on to. Like, I remember when I first read that, I was like, oh shit, that's awesome, because now I have a really good answer to tell people or to explain, even to myself, why is it that we're all paying so much attention to what this one man said and wrote? And at least that I am Matea thing gave me something as a young Scientologist to hold on to firmly and be like, well, this is why. This is why. And everybody loves Buddha, so that's cool. I'm so glad he was Buddha. Thank God. That's a good reason. All right, let's see. A lot of these other questions are really long, and I haven't broken them up, so I don't know what they say yet, and I don't want to stare at my computer screen for minutes on end. Okay, so how about this? Let's get into some of the how to speak Scientologese. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of terms here that I've already covered, and all right, so we'll just jump into a couple here. The terms ethics and ethical, since they both are used fairly often and have very different definitions than they do in the regular world. Okay, I cannot sit here and swear to you that I know the difference between how the words are used in Scientology and how they're used in philosophy or the world at large. So in Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard says that ethics is a concept of long-term survival. He also has another definition of the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. He's divided up life into 8 different dynamics. 1 is self, 2 is supposed to be family, 3 is supposed to be groups, any group, 4 is supposed to be all humankind, 5 is supposed to be the plant and animal life, 6th dynamic is supposed to be the physical universe, anything you can see and touch. 7th dynamic is supposed to be spirituality on an individual level or a collective level. And the 8th dynamic is supposed to be the concept of infinity or the concept of God. That is not an endorsement of a concept of God. It is L. Ron Hubbard acknowledging that this is a big part of most people's lives, is at least the concept of the allness of all or infinity, or what some people would call God. It's not what Scientologists call God. It's what Scientologists acknowledge other people call God. Okay, so the main way Scientologists define ethics or ethical is you're supposed to look at something that you want to do. And you're supposed to go through all of these 8 dynamics and go, well, if I did this, would it help my first dynamic? Would it help my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th? And if it helps more dynamics than it hurts, then it's supposed to be ethical. And the more constructive it is along these dynamics, the more ethical it is. It's not a black and white concept. It's like a spectrum. And here's what has happened over time, though, is Scientologists will do this little analysis of whether something is ethical or not, and they'll go, well, anything that helps Scientology helps all of the dynamics. Anything that helps Scientology in the long run helps me, my family, all my other groups, all humankind, the entire physical universe, and of course all thetans and spirits, because on the OT levels in Scientology, you're auditing, thetans and spirits. You're helping them free them from the trap of the physical universe. By the way, in order to give an even better background explanation of why anything that helps Scientology is ethical in the eyes of a Scientologist, please watch my other video if you have not seen this yet. It's called something like The Matrix. I've changed the name of this video. So Matrix, Scientology, YouTube. The name of this video is called The Matrix, Scientology, and Disconnection. It explains, it's a 30-minute video. It explains in more detail why anything that helps Scientology is, by definition in Scientology, ethical. Now, if anyone's listening to this and they feel like there's something I've missed on how I'm defining ethical, or they want to point out to me the difference between how Scientologists define the concept of ethics and how it's defined in the humanities, please leave it in the comments below and I'll address it. Okay, there is a term in Scientology. The next term is called J&D. J is in Joseph, D is in David. J&D. This is short for joking and degrading. Joking and degrading is a huge offense in Scientology. And it is basically making any joke about Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard. It's pretty all-inclusive. Any joke about Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard is considered J&D. And L. Ron Hubbard wrote a bulletin called Jokers and Degraders. And I'm paraphrasing this, I might get this wrong, but he essentially says there are only two people who joke and degrade. And of course I'm going to forget it. But it essentially says you're loaded down with evil intentions against Scientology or you're a suppressive person, which are really the same thing. And those are the only people who joke and degrade. I'll give you an example of joking and degrading. And this is, okay, I want to take a step back and actually explain why I decided to do How to Speak Scientology's videos. Because no one gives a damn about learning how to speak the Scientology vocabulary. But here's why I wanted to start introducing things like this. If you have friends or family members who are in Scientology, and you want to discuss the subject with them, with any credibility, maybe you want to raise concerns to them, there is nothing that will discredit you in the eyes of a Scientologist than misusing a Scientology word. Scientologists are really indoctrinated to believe that these negative ideas that exist about Scientology are manufactured by the suppressive media who are run by evil psychiatrists. So if you're approaching a Scientologist who is a friend or family member of yours, in other words, there's somebody who it's your business. You've decided it's your business to have a conversation with them. If you come to them with some sort of negative information, they just believe you're a messenger of evil. Not that you're evil, but that you are inadvertently and unknowingly forwarding a message that has been created by evil people. And nothing will reinforce that idea in their minds than you spouting some shit and misusing words or misrepresenting concepts. So I realize this might be a long shot, but I thought, it might be helpful to explain to non-Scientologists what some of the most commonly used Scientology words mean and how Scientologists use them, so that if you're able to incorporate these words correctly into your conversation with a Scientologist, you have a much greater chance of being taken seriously. Okay, so here's a funny example of J&D. When I was little, maybe 13, I was on a course with a friend of mine who has since passed, actually. And the course was called The Key to Life. And this course is just about definitions of words and grammar. It's not even really that much Scientology stuff in it. But in the promotional material for The Key to Life, there was this booklet. And the booklet, it was like, this big. And it had a scale. One of these old, like the scales of, like the scale of justice, like one of these real simple scales. And on one side of the scale was the key emblem that was like the symbol for the Key to Life course. And on the other side of the scale was a pile of 14 karat gold bars. And of course the scale was tilted in the favor of the key. And this person I was doing this course with, he said to me in earshot of other people, he goes, "I wonder why that's 14 karat gold instead of 24 karat gold." And he goes, "I know why. If it was 24 karat gold, the scale would go the other direction." And we just laughed our asses off. Oh boy, were we sent to the ethics officer very quickly. This was my first introduction to the bulletin, Jokers and Degraders. And they play it really, they play it bad cop, bad cop. There's no good cop, bad cop in the ethics office. So they just basically show you this bulletin and say, well, here's what L. Ron Hubbard says are the only two kinds of people who joke and degrade. So why don't you point out to these two and you tell me which one you are? Which one of these are you? Which one of these are you? You joker and a degrader? You J&D? Oh boy. All right. So how would Scientologists use this word? Let's say you made a joke. It'd be like someone could say, "Don't J&D," or "That's J&D." That's J&D. Don't J&D. They don't really say J&D-er. They don't really say you're a J&D-er. They don't say that. They might say you're a joker and degrader. You're a joker and degrader. Don't J&D. Anyway, there's only so many ways I can say that. Okay. So there's this concept. Well, the word that I have next on my list here is interbulated and interbulation. this word is one of the most commonly used words in Scientology. I'm so enturbulated. Okay. There's like the mechanical definition of what this means. If you're familiar with Dianetics in any way, shape, or form, then you understand what the reactive mind is supposed to be in Scientology. You understand what engrams are supposed to be in Scientology. And if you don't, just Google it. It'll be so much easier to get that quick definition from Google. So enturbulated is supposed to mean when you have basically engrams or parts of your reactive mind in restimulation and you're just feeling ugh. You're having negative emotions, negative thoughts, you're in a bad mood, so there's the mechanical definition of like what is supposed to be happening when someone is enturbulated or whatever, but this really is just a word that's used colloquially in Scientology to mean I'm in a bad mood. Wouldn't it just be easier to say I'm in a bad mood? I'm so enturbulated. It means I'm so upset. If you get bad news and you were in a good mood and now you're in a bad, you'd be like, that news was really enturbulating. Or if someone just always likes to talk, shit about people too all the time, be like, I find it really enturbulating that you're always criticizing other people. Like that would be a way this word would be used. Enturbulation. So enturbulation is just things that are enturbulating, things that are upsetting. Noise, nonsense, distractions. I don't need all this enturbulation. It would be so hilarious for people to start using these words accurately in conversations with Scientologists. They'd be like, what's going on? I thought that was a Scientology word. And then you can play a joke on them and be like, what are you talking about? That's not a Scientology word. We all talk like that. Okay, there's a little phrase called TRs. Most people who are Scientology watchers for long enough already know what this means. TRs is short for training routines. And training routines refers to the communication drills that exist in Scientology. These drills are somewhat infamous at this point. It's the drills where people are sitting in two chairs across from each other. And the first drill is where you just sit across from each other in chairs with your eyes closed. So somebody might as well not be in front of you. But someone's in front of you. So just sitting there with your eyes closed until you feel comfortable. And then the next one is sitting there with your eyes open, staring at the person across from you. Now, you're not supposed to stare. You're supposed to look comfortably. I know. And this is probably the most famous communication drill because this is the drill. This is why Scientologists have the stereotype of having the staring. They look like they're staring, or they don't blink very much when you talk to them. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I mean, this is a hard habit for me personally to break. Because you're so used to eye contact and strong eye contact being a good thing. And the truth is, in the real world, as long as you're not being like a fucking stare-eyed bug-all weirdo, it is a good thing. Eye contact is a good communication habit. At least, if you don't have to stare at someone, but people who can't make eye contact comfortably do not come across well in business situations for sure. So that's one of the most famous drills, is sitting across from each other, staring at someone for, maybe up to 2 hours. That's called TR0. And there's a whole bunch of communication drills. There's no point going through them, but there's OTTR0, there's TR0, there's TR1, TR2, TR2.5, TR3, TR4, and then there's TR6, 7, 8, and 9, and TR5 no longer exists. So these are called TRs. So because these communication drills are supposed to be like the backbone of all Scientology activity, these communication drills are how Scientology auditors are put through hundreds of hours of these drills because they're supposed to be the backbone for how to properly communicate with people, how to properly listen to people, how to properly acknowledge someone, how to properly handle when someone's trying to get off the subject. So because these are the backbone in Scientology of how to communicate, it is very common for Scientologists to say something like, TRs are either in or they're out. That's how Scientologists use them. So let's say someone is up doing a public speaking thing, and they get really flustered. Afterwards, they would say something like, my TRs were totally out, or those lights threw my TRs completely out, or I don't know, I just couldn't keep my TRs in. And they're used as the plural. Keep your TRs in, have your TRs in, your TRs are out, just means you are exhibiting poor communication habits. It often means you are visibly uncomfortable in communicating. Like if someone's all nervous and stammering, someone might say, can you please put your TRs in? Just get your TRs in. Just calm down and get your TRs in. Man, that's pretty much all I can say about that. Somebody pointed out here LRH's fascination with the suffix ness, just adding ness to the ends of words to make verbs nouns, or to make nouns double nouns. Okay, so I put together some examples of words that end in ness. Knowingness, beingness, havingness, rightness, wrongness, outness, isness, as isness, doingness, alter isness. Isn't that a wonderful plethora of words? PTSness, that's true. And I don't really want to define all these things right now. I don't really want to. Is this the right time? Knowingness. Knowingness is just the fact that you know something to be true. This is what I want people to start using. I want to introduce this word into common usage, this phrase. Don't invalidate your knowingness. This would mean you knew something to be true all along, but you put that to the side because you were not quite convinced, not quite confident enough. So let's take any example you can think of that. Somebody might go, I should never have invalidated my knowingness. I should have stuck with my knowingness. Like there's this confirmation bias that if you had an idea about something, just a passing, fleeting idea, and then it turned out to be correct, I knew it in the first place. And because this might have happened, the next time you will act on your passing, fleeting idea because previously it just so happened to be one of the possible outcomes and was the possible outcome. So what are other ways Scientologists might use this word knowingness? Let's say someone says, I just know this is a fact. And I'm going to get a little political just because it's obvious and funny. I just know Barack Obama's a Muslim. Well, how do you know that? It's just my knowingness. It's just my knowingness. But Scientologists are conditioned, is the word I like to use, into thinking that because they are Thetans, and because a Thetan is, at its essence, truth and knowledge, that the more auditing you get and the higher up you are on the bridge, the more you are able to tap in to like this universal bank of truth. And so Scientologists really do get conditioned to think that if they think it, that's at a very basic core theta level, and that's their knowingness. And their thoughts about the truth can dictate truth because it's their knowingness. So I just want all of you out there, I'm going to write a sequel to the book The Secret, and it's going to be called Don't Invalidate Your Knowingness. All right. Beingness. There's no way I'm going to be able to go through all these words. Knowingness, beingness, havingness, rightness, wrongness, outness, isness, as isness, doingness, alter isness. They're just fun to say, people. They're just fun to say. Maybe I'll define them all at a later time. You can also look these things up. There's like Scientology glossaries online. I just found one earlier today. What is this called? www.zenu-directory.net//glossary. Cool stuff. All right. If I could figure out how to pull up my own frickin' live stream, then I would pull up the comment part here and try to answer some questions. Give me just a moment to try to do that. Seems like every single time I do one of these videos, I struggle with this part. Video manager, dashboard, live streaming. Anyway, I don't know what the hell the deal is here. I just don't know. My next video will almost certainly be a review of Season 1, Episode 2 of The Path. Those are really fun videos. I'm going to bang those out as quickly as I can. What else? I'm really sorry I can't see the comment chat. I can see comments flash up on the on the phone that I'm videoing on, but they go away so quickly. It's really hard to tackle them there. God, I wish I knew what I was doing wrong on this. Give me one more second, and then I'll bail. Oh, anybody watching this, I did a video recently with Chris Shelton. Go on to Chris Shelton's channel if you haven't seen this video. It's called Let's Chat About Independent Scientology featuring Aaron Smith-Levin. I'm going to figure out how to link videos to my video. I've never created like playlists or whatever, but I'm going to start doing that. Me and Chris are going to do a whole series of videos with each other. It's one thing to chit-chat about things we already agree on regarding Scientology and independent Scientology and all that kind of stuff. Neither one of us are independent Scientologists, but it's fun to debate about things or discuss things we agree on. It's even more fun to do that on things we disagree on. So we're going to gradually get into that and just keep doing videos with each other. I think it's kind of fun for me and Chris to chat with each other live on YouTube, and we know each other from the Sea Org, and we have a good rapport with one another, and so we're going to keep doing that. And I'm sorry, guys. I just can't find the damn stream. Can't find the stream that I'm doing, so I can't find the chat history. I keep wanting to try again. Oh, maybe that was it. Hold on. Found it. Found it. Live chat, found it. It's those superpowers, guys. It's those Scientology superpowers. They never fail me. They never fail me. All right, here we go. Let's do it. Okay, scrolling up. Are Scientologists exposed often to people who do not understand what they're saying? I realize the public must be exposed to such people, but what about staff and the Sea Org members? Yeah, well, staff members, yes. So, remember, Sea Org members only deliver services to people who are already veteran Scientologists, and Sea Org members don't spend a lot of time off of Sea Org bases. So they're not often exposed to the public who don't understand what the hell they're talking about. Staff members work in normal orgs in big cities across the U.S. A staff member working at like the Philadelphia org or the Chicago org or the Dallas org or the Austin org, those are the orgs where actually brand new people are supposed to get into Scientology. So people who work in those orgs are used to speaking with, they'll call them brand new public or raw meat. Not kidding. That's what they call brand new public, raw meat. So the answer is, in orgs, yes, they are used to it. In Sea Org orgs, no, they are not. I understand that a lot of people who jump into these videos think I'm a Scientologist because they haven't already seen other videos on my channel. I'm not still a Scientologist. And just Google my name and you will learn more. All right, let's see what else we got. You're invalidating your knowingness. Yes. Why are celebrities allowing the corruption to go on? Yeah, there's so much that could be said about this. Last night's episode of Scientology in the Aftermath was an amazing one. And it was interesting to see Paul Haggis come out so strongly against the celebrities who are still in it. And I have to admit, I'm quite conflicted on this subject, because I know that while I was in Scientology, I was just as much or more of a supporter than these celebrities were. And because I know that when I was in, no amount of shit talking or exposure or anything would have done anything to change my mind about anything. It's very hard for me to criticize current celebrities, other than Tom Cruise maybe, for allowing the corruption to go on. And I put it in quotes because, well, technically you could say that all Scientologists allow the corruption to go on. But if you're in it, you don't think that's what you're doing. So to assign those intentions to them doesn't seem, to me, if I were to do that, it wouldn't be an honest position. I'd be accusing them of doing something I know I did as well, and I know that while I was doing it, it did not occur to me that's what I was doing. So can you be criticized for unknowingly causing damage? You can be criticized for being blind, but you can't be criticized for having bad intentions. Do you see what I mean? Most Scientologists are very good people. They're not in on the con. Most celebrities are the same way. And I know it's easy to go, well, they're celebrities. They know the real deal. Well, why? Why does the fact that they're a celebrity make them know the real deal? If anything, they're shielded from a lot of the bullshit and the nonsense. It's true that all celebrities know Scientology is anti-gay. That's a fact. All celebrities know that disconnection does exist. That's a fact. But it doesn't mean Scientologists, those guys believe David Miscavige imprisoned people at International Management. I think it's important to at least be honest about this, that Scientologists, for the most part, do not believe that. Now, if they did believe it, I'm not saying it would change their minds. I'm saying they have decided that those are lies, because that is what they are told. They're told those things didn't happen. Those are all bullshit stories. I'd be hard-pressed to think any Scientologist thinks David Miscavige would ever punch somebody in the face, or tackle somebody, or rip someone's uniform off, or anything like that. I understand why people want to hold the celebrities particularly accountable. I get it. I just don't share the same outrage, because I don't see it the same way. And that's all. It's just a couple, different ways somebody can view that whole thing. Let's look for some other questions. Can you explain what a knowledge report is? Very simple. In Scientology, if you are aware of someone having done something that violated policy or did not reflect well on Scientology, or was shit-talking someone, you basically submit a written report to the ethics officer tattling on this person. And that report is simply called a knowledge report, or in Scientology it's called a KR. Because L. Ron Hubbard wrote a policy called knowledge reports and said that anyone failing to turn in a knowledge report on a situation is equally culpable and just as guilty as the person who committed whatever the act was that was supposed to be reported. And Scientologists really do take this to heart. Scientologists will write up reports on their best friends, their kids, their parents, staff members. It's not one of these things where if you write a KR on someone, your friendship is over. It is so common to write KRs on each other in Scientology that it's just taken with a relative grain of salt. You might think that, well, boy, if I turned in a report on my best friend to the authorities, our friendship would be over. Not so in Scientology. It's just that common. Being conditioned into thinking that if you see anything and you don't say something, you're just as guilty. I have 500 reports that I personally wrote during my 4 years in working for the Sea Org in Los Angeles. 500. I'm going to figure out what to do with these reports someday, because they are hilarious and fascinating and provide an amazing insight into the mind of a Sea Org member and insight into the day-to-day life of a Sea Org member, because my reports are extremely detailed. I was a professional report writer. I was just as much into all of this stuff as anybody else was. Did you have a hard time adjusting to actual reality when you left Scientology? No, I didn't. I spent a lot of time in the real world. I spent years and years working at the Philadelphia org. That's one of the orgs where people get into Scientology. You're used to dealing with non-Scientologists. And for many years that I was working at the Philadelphia org, I actually had a day job in the real world that I got through a temp agency. I worked at the Philadelphia Orchestra. I worked at GlaxoSmithKline, or SmithKline Beecham it was at that time. I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield, at AmeriHealth. I've worked in law offices. Before I joined the Sea Org, I owned a house, I owned a car, I had a fiance. I didn't even sell my house when I joined the Sea Org. I kept it as a rental that the other Philadelphia staff members were living at. So by the time I left the Sea Org, I was already used to the real world. And by the time I left Scientology, I'd already been out of the Sea Org for, 7 years or something like that. Okay. Some funny comments here. All right, that's probably it for now. Does David Miscavige have an heir to Scientology in place? Does he have a son or a child who may take his place eventually? No, Miscavige has no children. Miscavige's wife or ex-wife Shelley has no children. My knowingness tells me that David Miscavige is no longer married to Shelley, but that's just my knowingness. I don't want to invalidate my knowingness. Anyway, neither of them have children, and Miscavige will never have children. And even if he did have children, Scientology doesn't really work like that, where your son gets powers of succession or anything like that. I mean, not even LRH's kids got power of succession. LRH does still have a daughter, Diana Hubbard, who works at International Management and isn't even like a particularly senior executive. I mean, other than the fact that everybody at International Management is sort of by definition a senior executive, she doesn't even have any particular power in the Church of Scientology. How weird is that? You know that your father created all this shit and you're low man on the totem pole in the organization? Diana would be there like, my dad is L. Ron Hubbard, but by all means, Mr. David Miscavige, you tell me how this organization is supposed to run. You tell me what my father meant when he wrote this bulletin or policy letter. It's pretty weird dynamic going on there. Will a board of directors eventually take over Scientology? David Miscavige is a relatively young guy. What? He's younger than 60. Is he 55, 56? Let's see how old David Miscavige is. $57. Ooh, he's pushing it. No, I'm just kidding. That's still pretty young. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. And he's got no kids. There is no board. This idea that David Miscavige is known as the chairman of the board of the Religious Technology Center. There is no actual board. There are people who are nominally appointed to the board. A board has the authority to make votes and elect new chairmen and all that kind of stuff. There's no board. That's not the way this works. People who are named to the board have undated, pre-signed resignation letters. Because for legal purposes, this board does have to look like it exists, and people do have to be on it. They do not have any authority whatsoever. All right. Well, I think that's probably all I'm going to do for now. People aren't likely to want to sit down and watch more than an hour video anyway. So, if there's any terms that you want me to tackle on future How to Speak Scientology's videos, terms, ideas, phrases, whatever, things you hear Scientologists say most often, even while you're watching videos online or whatever, and you never what the hell does that mean? Put it in the comments section. I'll copy and paste it into this document that I'm keeping for future How to Speak Scientology's videos. That's all I got for now, guys. See you again soon. Bye-bye.